are looking live at sold-out Giants Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The weather in the East today is beautiful. From Philadelphia, it will be Washington against the Philadelphia Eagles. Both those teams are 4-1. Meanwhile, here, the amazing unbeaten Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to try to make it 6-0 against a New York team, which will start rookie passer Phil Simms in an attempt to get victory number 1. Now live from sold-out Fulton County Stadium in Atlanta, where the Falcons will try to end a 3-game losing streak against Bart Starr's Packers, who last Monday suddenly looked like Green Bay of old under Bart Starr. And live from Rich Stadium in Orchard Park, New York, where the Chicago Bears must go with Bob Avellini at quarterback in place of Vince Evans against the new threat in the AFC East, the talented Buffalo Bills. And also live from sold-out Schaefer Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, where Monty Clark's struggling Detroit Lions take on the explosive New England Patriots in a game neither team can afford to lose.
Hi, my buddy Jimmy the Greek is on the injured reserve list today, so I'm going to tell you who's going to win all the NFL games and the World Series. But don't run to your phone, because a year ago I said it would be the Phillies.
The NFL Today is sponsored by the Dean Witter Reynolds Investment Firm with more than 240 offices worldwide. Aladdin Stanley Thermos Bottles, the tough ones. And by AC Delco, quality automotive parts for quality motoring. AC Delco. From the CBS Sports Control in New York, here's Brent Musburger.
Good afternoon, everybody, and for those of you watching in Honolulu, where it is now 6:30, a very good morning. Jimmy the Greek on the injured reserve list. As Pete Rose pointed out, he suffered injuries in a motorbike accident. Would you believe it? But I spoke to the Greek this morning. He is feeling much better at home in Durham, North Carolina, but he mailed in his picks, and we're going to have more on that later. First of all, last night in college football, let's get you up to date. Texas over Rice 26-9, and Houston fumbled 6 times and hung on to beat Baylor 13-10. LSU, a couple of fourth-quarter touchdowns, defeated Florida 20-3, and Arkansas remained unbeaten, beating TCU by 3 points. Meanwhile, Texas Tech just shaded A&M 21-20, and the Green Wave, Tulane, is coming back 42-14. And, of course, baseball is on everyone's mind. It is going to be the Pittsburgh Pirates against the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series. That will start Tuesday night in Baltimore. We have just received word Bruce Keeson is going to be the starting pitcher for the Pirates. Pete, are you surprised about that?
Not really, Brent, because he was their most effective pitcher in the month of September, and he did not get to see any action during the playoffs. So Bruce is a fine choice.
Let's take a look at some of the action from the Baltimore, California series. Doug DeCinces at third base made a great stop for him yesterday, didn't he?
Well, bases loaded and 1 out on this play right here, and there's a ball that would have been a double, probably 3 runs, and he was playing shallow because I guess he's going to go to home with it, and he just tugged the base right there and made a great throw to first base. Plenty of time for double play. Here's another double play by the Baltimore Orioles. Defense is the pitcher's biggest weapon, as you know, and they turn the double play as well as any team in baseball.
And, of course, on the offense for the Orioles, there are 3 and 4 men. Singleton and Murray can turn around and hit you from either side.
Well, here's a double by Singleton in the 8th inning of yesterday's ball game, and he started out the series 1 for 8, but he come back with 5 out of the last 7. There's a single to center field by Murray, who knocked in 7 runs. There's a 3-run homer off of Mark Clear in Game 2 that put him into a 9-1 lead, which looked good until Baltimore got rolling.
Now, following Bruce Keeson on the mound for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're going to start Bert Blyleven. We're going to show you some tape of Blyleven in action against Cincinnati. What are his weapons?
Well, he's got the best curveball in the National League, and he's a lot like Steve Rogers. He's got a sinking fastball, hard fastball, and a good curveball. really a hard curveball. It just drops off the table. It's probably the best curveball in baseball. This is a fastball here to Foster. He just blew him right away. You get George Foster on that pitch, you got something.
Now here's that curveball.
That's the curveball to end the game right there. No one can hit that. I couldn't even hit that one.
Here's the big guy.
Parker, the base hit off of Doug Bear to left field to go ahead and run Marino, who can run like the wind, just scored easy right there. There's a 3-run homer off of Tom Hume in Game 1. The score was 2-2 at that time. That put the Pirates ahead 5-2. That was the final score.
This is the only old guy better than you are, Mr. Rose. Willie Stargell.
There's a double down the right field line with 2 men on. 2 more RBIs for Willie Stargell, who was the MVP in the playoff series.
I am really surprised that Tanner is not going to open up with Candelaria against Parker and Stargell, Pete.
Well, I think they'll save Candy for
What am I thinking of? I mean, Flanagan, he hasn't named his pitcher at Baltimore.
I think it'd be Flanagan.
You think they will go with
because,
Flanagan?
Because, I really like the Pirates, but I think the Orioles have a great shot because of Flanagan and McGregor. Left-hand pitchers give the Pirates a lot of trouble, and those are 2 of the best in all baseball. Plus, they have Tippy Martinez, who's a left-hander in the bullpen.
Okay, there was one controversial play I want to ask you about. Collins in right field for Cincinnati.
He made a great catch, but Frank Poole is the umpire, and he called it the way he saw it, and it was a wrong call, as we'll see on the replay here. But what can you do about it? It's his call. The ball's in right center, and most outfielders won't get up and run in there if they don't think they caught the ball. It was just a missed call, but I'm sure that the replays will show that the umpires are right most of the time. See, he caught it behind him, and you can see a lot of white on the ball right here. So he thought he trapped it right there. That's why he called him safe. And he can't ask for help from the first base umpire because he's going to right center. It's his call.
Now, if you don't do well as a handicapper today, when we get down to that Greek segment, Peter, I'll tell you, we're going to hire Mr. Candelaria. Did you see him during the National League playoffs? Did you see the cap he was wearing?
He picked the Baltimore Orioles, right. That's him. He's crazy. That's why he's a good pitcher. He's a crazy guy.
Well, again, it is going to be Bruce Keeson for Pittsburgh in the opener, and so far we have not heard from Earl Weaver, whether it will be the left-hander Flanagan, that's who Rose thinks he'll open up with, or the right-hander Jim Palmer. If it is not, of course, Palmer will go in Game 2. And the NFL Today will continue on CBS in just a moment. Before we check in with Hank Stram at Giants Stadium, one of the big games many of you are going to be watching, Washington and Philadelphia. Both those teams 4-1. Philadelphia, of course, has to be alive in anticipation of this one.
Alive. It's like going into a playoff game. It's electric down there. It's a lot of excitement. The team's looking forward to it. It's going to be a great game. Okay, Coach Stram, you're out there in the Meadowlands right now to cover the Tampa Bay game with the New York Giants. The Bucs are 5-0. How good are they?
Well, I think they're a very good football team, Irv. I think they've earned the right to be regarded as a good football team the way they played this early in the season. I saw them in preseason, did all of their preseason games. It was very impressive, especially with their defense, and they're improving tremendously on offense.
Coach, thanks a lot. Have a good day.
All right, thank you, Irv.
Irv and Pete and Jane, take a look at the sport coat that Lindsey Nelson is wearing today. Lindsey, that's got to be the leftovers from all your other coats, right?
All put together by a very good tailor.
Now, the Green Bay Packers in Atlanta. Green Bay for real, Lindsey? Are they back?
Well, they hope they're back. They played their best game on Monday night, and of course the Falcons are trying to snap out of a 3-game losing streak. The question is, can Green Bay stay up there, or will they be flat after the great performance on Monday night?
All right, Lindsey, thank you very much. Enjoy the afternoon in Atlanta. And Irv, what do we got up in Buffalo?
Tim Ryan standing by with the Buffalo Bills and Chicago Bears are going to battle. And Tim, of course, the big story in Chicago all year long has been their quarterback position. What's your status today?
Well, Joe Ferguson, of course, is the leading quarterback in the entire National Football League, the top-rated quarterback. He's just been doing an outstanding job. He's got 10 touchdown passes to his credit already. The Chicago Bears, on the other hand, Irv, have got quarterback problems. Vince Evans came down with a staph infection in his lower back. Bob Avellini will be the starter today. It may have been that way anyway, following the Bears' third straight defeat last week. Avellini might have gotten the call to start today, but that question became moot when Evans went down with a rather serious staph infection in his back, and he's going to be gone for a while. So Avellini gets a chance to regain his starting spot today. The Bears, in a must-win situation, they're trying to get to 500. The surprising Bills are chasing the Miami Dolphins.
Thanks very much, Tim.
All right, we've got Dick Stockton standing by New England. There's a city that's tough on quarterbacks. Boston, what's the reaction now to Steve Grogan, Dick?
Well, Brent, I'll tell you that in this city, this has got to be the toughest sports city, and every time the Patriots lose, they blame Steve Grogan, despite the fact he has 10 touchdown passes and adds that other dimension. They blame Grogan for everything, and I tell you what, if things get really tough, maybe they can go to Boston Garden and watch Larry Bird and the Celtics. That won't be bad either.
Is Bird going to be that good? Give me a little NBA insight.
I think so. I think that Larry Bird is looked upon perhaps as the best player the Celtics have had since Dave Cowens, and they're all lined up for tickets for Celtics games, believe me.
All right, Dick, have a good afternoon. Detroit and New England, his game. And Jane, you've got part 2 on Pete Gent's controversial novel, North Dallas 40.
That's right, the final episode. The film is definitely a highly debated topic, not only with those who saw it, but with those who lived it. A couple of Pete Gent's former teammates, Lance Rensel and Don Perkins, feel it offers a distorted view of what life was really like in the 60s with the Dallas Cowboys. For 8 seasons, Don Perkins, number 43, was a steady, team-oriented player for Dallas. Lance Rensel, number 19, was the prototype of the lean, graceful flanker with sure hands that could pluck passes out of the air.
There was a flaw in the movie and in the book that it presented a negative view that I don't really think is in the real proper perspective. Basically, I feel that perhaps Pete left the game a little bitter and it affected his writing a little bit, therefore affected the outcome of the movie.
Frankly, I was bored with the film. I watched the entire thing, but after a very few minutes, I didn't relate to it at all. It was not football. It was not any kind of a game or personalities that I could ever relate to.
People say, well, pro football is dehumanizing because it's a business, as if there's anything else it should be. We all have this notion of sport that it's our last refuge from our own insanity, so to speak. That's how at least it once was viewed. And we don't want to think that pro football is tainted, but it is. It is a business. But in my opinion, so what? I mean, that's the way it should be run, and I think by and large it's a very well-run business, and the pro athlete today has a pretty good life.
I think for the most part, what I really feel is that it lacked a lot of the humanistic kinds of feelings that the players and coaches, in my opinion, had or have, and I think in the movie they came off as certain kinds of bizarre animals, you know, totally void of feeling, and I had trouble relating to that, especially Landry, and I have no reason to defend Tom one way or the other, but Tom is a very fair guy, he's a very warm guy, and in the movie he comes across as stone, you know, totally without feeling, you know, and I just couldn't see it.
Back in the huddle. The doctor will look after him. You get back in that huddle right now or off the field.
When I look back upon my years with the Cowboys, I have very fond memories and value very highly my relationships with Clint Murkison, Tex Ram, and Tom Landry. They were very, very good to me. They were very fair to me, and at a time when I needed them, they supported me. And that's all you can ask from an organization. And I look back upon my years with the Cowboys as the happiest years of my career, and in my mind, they will always be my team.
I guess I'm surprised at Rensel's reaction to the movie.
I was too. I was really, literally shocked, but I think it comes from, he said that since he's writing a screenplay, he's had an awful lot of time to really evaluate what, you know, playing football is all about. And so now, with this movie coming out, North Dallas 40, he can really honestly say what he really believes.
Aren't you in something tonight on CBS? Trapper John?
Trapper John MD, a CBS hit, definitely.
That's our only hit, right? We need more. The NFL Today will continue on CBS in just a moment. Irv, I suppose last week the Eagles finally believed they'd turned the corner.
I think maybe they have, Brent. You know, when the Eagles beat the defending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers last Sunday, they just may have symbolically turned the corner of a 4-year reconstruction program under Coach Dick Vermeil. It now finally seems that you can no longer say, same old Eagles.
Philadelphia is no longer a city associated with losing professional football.
The Eagles, along with the Dallas Cowboys and today's opponent, the Washington Redskins, sport 4-1 records, best in the NFC East. Philadelphia's key to success thus far has been their defense, an attack that ranks among the leaders in quarterback sacks and fewest points allowed. Last Sunday, they thoroughly controlled Terry Bradshaw and his defending world champion Pittsburgh Steelers to register a 17-14 upset. Eagle defenders collected 4 turnovers, 2 in game-saving fashion, and 1 interception by linebacker John Bunning, number 95, set up the winning touchdown. Certainly, this victory was more than just another mark in the win column.
We want to play over our heads every week. We have a very spunky team, a very enthusiastic team. And when we play with the type of consistency and intensity and high concentration level that we played with this past week, we can play with the best.
The Eagles can play with the best because of head coach Dick Vermeil. Always driving towards perfection, Vermeil's guidance has turned a once floundering program completely around. Their trademark has become near air-free football and precise execution. It is not unusual to see flawless play fakes lure unsuspecting defenders away from passer Ron Jaworski so he can hit talented wide receiver Harold Carmichael. Once, it was said hard work was the only reason the Eagles ever won because there was little talent. But those days are over.
You don't win in this league unless you have some good football players. And we have players that weren't supposed to be as good as they are, but they're good football players. The Carl Harrisons, the Frank Lemasters, the John Bunnings, the Stan Walters, all our players, the Sizemores, the Krefleys, and the Jaworskis, and of course the Wilbert Montgomerys and the Carmichael. These guys are good football players, and football players win games, coaches don't. When in the National Football League, you win one, you lose one, it's in the past on Monday, and all of a sudden it's a new week. You have no time to really enjoy it. You have to get ready to play again on Sunday, and if you don't win the following Sunday, then you're not a good football team anymore. And it's all dependent on a performance each Sunday.
You like the Eagles today, Irv?
I do, but I tell you, the Redskins and the Eagles match up very well. Lamar Parrish in the left corner and Joe Lavender on the right corner, or the other way around, right corner and left corner, could give the Eagle passing game a lot of trouble.
You hedge more than the Greek. You know, one thing about the Washington Redskins, I stand second to no one in my respect for a man named George Allen. I still think he should be coaching someplace in the NFL. But Jack Pardee has done an incredible job turning that team around as quickly as he has. Now, for the last couple of years, it's been the Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series. This year's teams, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, provide a contrast in both their style of play and the cities that they're from. Jack Whitaker was here a little bit earlier to examine those differences.
It's hard to realize that the NFL season moves into its 6th week today. In other times, the 6th game was the start of the second half of the season. But that was back in the times when the Pope could not visit the White House and there was no prevent defense. So much has happened this past week that there's an air of turbulence in the sports scene. And before we get swamped in football and, God save the mark, professional basketball, which begins this week, a word about baseball. The playoffs have produced the 2 best teams, and the World Series should be one of the more brilliant ones in recent years. Pittsburgh and Baltimore are quite different from the past 2 years of Los Angeles and New York. Those were 2 of the largest cities in this country, Tinseltown and the Big Apple, loaded with glamour and highly publicized ball players. Pittsburgh and Baltimore are working towns. Not that people don't work in New York and Los Angeles, but in Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they work long and hard, and their ball clubs are very special to them. This series will have a different look about it, new faces and new personalities. Free agents did not build these clubs, and both of them carry the team concept further than most. Earl Weaver has a quiet club with the best record in baseball. The Pirates, with the most unfortunate uniforms in all of sport, have the best spirit of any team in all of sport. Baltimore and Pittsburgh. It'll be the Allegheny Airlines series.
Jimmy the Greek is sponsored by Muriel Coronellas and Air Tips. Join the Muriel Admiration Society.
But instead of Jimmy the Greek, we're going to have to go with Peter the Irishman today because my man the Greek decided to take up motorcycle riding this week. Would you believe what happened to him? Well, look at how he was going there, folks. Huh? Is that Evel Knievel or what? Been right in there. Well, unfortunately, folks, after he learned how to start it, he forgot to ask how to stop it, and he suffered some injuries. He's coming along fine. We'll have him next week. All right, up to you now, Rose. Chicago in Buffalo.
Can the Bills stop Walter Payton? If they can, they'll have a good shot.
All right, now remember, all these check marks belong to the Greek. And Peter, you agree with the Greek on that game, right?
I'm gonna pick Chicago on that one.
You're going to go against the Greek.
I don't think you can stop.
You're going with Chicago. All right, here we go. Now, Detroit and New England.
New England lost Monday night, and Grogan to Francis. This is the best bet of the day right here. New
England. Right here?
They're going to blow them out.
All right, Green Bay and Atlanta now. The talented Packers look good Monday night.
Atlanta's never lost 4 in a row under Lehman Bennett, and they're going to be tough at home. They're always tough at home.
Agree with the Greek right there. Okay, now we got Washington, Philadelphia, the big one in Philly.
I'm a Philadelphia fan now. I picked the Eagles over to Washington.
You think the Eagles are going to win, huh?
They got to contain Theismann, though. Keep him in the pocket.
All right, that's tough to do. He can move. Now we got Tampa Bay against the Giants. How about those Buccaneers?
They're for real. And they're going to win today.
They're going to win easy over the Giants?
It's the first time they've ever been favored on the road in the history of the franchise.
Where'd you get all that stuff? You're pretty good.
I follow football pretty good. Tampa Bay will win today.
All right, now the rest of the schedule. You agree with that? Kansas City over Cincinnati?
I think so. The Bengals are 0-5 and just playing as bad as they can play.
All right, slightly favored, Peter. How about Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, the Jets, San Diego, and Oakland?
I agree with every one of those.
All right.
You sure this is not my list? This is Jimmy's list?
Favored category, Houston, Dallas, and Seattle.
Well, St. Louis got shut out last week, and Houston's tough in the Astrodome. Dallas is always tough. Minnesota's not scoring many points. And Seattle and Frisco, I'm going to take San Francisco in that one.
Sound good. We'll be back with the Irishman's Grapevine in just a moment. All right, time now for the Irishman's Grapevine. Who's going to manage the Philadelphia Phillies next year?
I think Dallas Green will be the manager because he won 19 out of the last 30 when he come down out of the front office to manage the last month of the season. I think if he wants the managerial job, I think he can get it. But there's some talk that he wants to stay in the front office. So if Dallas wants the job, I think it's his.
The Greek has been touting you. Would you like to manage?
About 1983.
83, right? When you retire, write it down. All right. There was one big upset in college football that I want to show you yesterday. The Big Ten, you know, has come back with the forward pass. One of the teams coming around did not resort to the pass yesterday. The Golden Gophers, punting right here to Purdue, fumbled by the Boilers. Tom Murphy of Minnesota recovers in the end zone. 17-7 Minnesota over Purdue. Now watch Gary White find daylight to the left. He got down to the Boilermakers' 1-yard line. And here comes Marion Barber. He's a load. 1 yard for the touchdown. It's 24-14 Minnesota, fourth quarter. Mark Herman, talented young passing quarterback, but not well thrown this time. Freshman cornerback Glenn Cardelli picks it off, returns it 27 yards to the Purdue 30. A little bit later, Barber scored his third touchdown of the afternoon. Minnesota won at 31-14. And our NFL Today top 5 looks like this. We've still got the Trojans up on top. They took care of Washington State yesterday. Alabama, Oklahoma, watch out for Washington. They are loaded this year. And we tie Houston and Nebraska for 5th. I don't know why we didn't rank Ohio State up there. They beat a very tough Northwestern team, had a lot of trouble with them. Now, next Sunday on the NFL Today, we're going to show you who's going to win the Heisman Trophy. Irv Cross is on the committee. He's going to open up the envelope. And we'll see you at halftime. Hey, if we've got some time, let's show some Trapper John at halftime. All right, Jane?
That sounds like a good idea.
All right, Jane and Irv. Peter the Irishman over there. I'm Brent Musburger. Remember now, write down Rose's picks and see how he does. We'll see you at halftime. Enjoy the NFL Today on CBS.
Stay tuned as the NFL Today continues after this word from your local station.